probably all overloaded and overstimulated with our workload and information. And I feel like we're in a critical prime time at this moment in history where we need to stop being the victims, we need to stop being held hostage, and we need to come together as environmentalists and express our vision, crystallize our vision, and set the priorities if we are to move into this quantum leap into the 21st century. And what's so interesting is that we are not only going through change, we are going through tumultuous change. And so I think that with this speeding up of time, I'm just fighting at the bit. How do we all come together as one voice? And as being able to come to the streets like they are in Egypt, like they are in Tunisia. Because we have lost so much ground. We have had the solutions at hand for decades, and we've been ignored. But I just want to bring together some of the leading activists that have been fully immersed, who have been on the front lines, and who have been instrumental in helping us make some of to express the warning signs and express the vision. We have Tim Herlock, president of Native Forest Council, who has been steadfast, screaming out about no more compromise. We've gone way past the point of compromise. We only have 5% left of native forests. And then we have Dave Sieber, who has been very immersed with the industrial hemp, and he's an entrepreneur, activist, who has been diligently absorbing all this information and educating, and has come up with a product that he has gotten through. Hopefully it also has created all these prototypes of different ways to replace our forest products. And then Floyd Brzezinski, who is tremendously not only intelligent but full of wisdom, and is ready, and who has helped initiate and pass through legislation in 2010 in the state of Oregon. So we need to know how to do this. Now we have Todd Delato over here, who has been involved with hemp for years as well, and has been working on the nutritional and the food and agricultural aspect of this movement. So we'll open up first with Floyd Brzezinski to kind of bring us up to speed where we are within legislation and how we can go forth in a timely manner, actually in a rapid manner, to be able to actualize this.
Thanks, everyone. Just to kind of give a perspective, I am a state senator in Oregon. I represent parts of Lane and Douglas counties. For those who are visiting from out of the city region, you're in Lane County. You're actually you're not in the district I represent. The law school isn't, but all the rest of the facilities here on campus are. Not sure how 10 years ago, but we're going to be working on that this year. The other part of the district that makes up my district is Douglas County, which is to the south of us. And we have a very, let's say, diverse cross-section of individuals that live in this district, from a lot of timber-based as well as a lot of urban influence. I was asked to kind of give an overview of where we've gone with the industrial hemp legislation. I'm happy to report, as you've heard, Oregon did join the ranks of other states in allowing for industrial hemp to be grown in the state. We've actually taken the position and have gone to the point of where we now have the framework to actually have licensing to occur in this state. Based on my count, I believe there are 17 states that have passed some type of legislation involving industrial hemp, from resolutions to the passage of such as Oregon and Vermont. The issue that we now have is that since the definition of marijuana under the federal system includes industrial hemp, we will not be able to see that product grown in this state or any other state in the country until DEA or the U.S. Congress makes a change in the definition or how we look at industrial hemp. It doesn't take much to look at the historical perspective of industrial hemp and seeing the close ties it has to our colonial days and how it was in fact a vital substance and product that was used through not only from colonial time up until about the 1950s, early 1960s. at which time you start seeing it being displaced by other commercial interest. My goal is to do everything I can to make certain that we in this state and other states can actually have farmers grow industrial hemp. If you don't know it, right now you can import as much industrial hemp from any country in this world into the United States. And I question why our farmers are not allowed to actually benefit by growing the hemp. And we have businesses here in the state, such as Living Harvest, who's putting out great product that would love to have a sustainable circle where we could actually see in the Willamette Valley where grass seed has been grown for many years and will continue to be grown, but at the same time see that for those farmers who might want to make that change, be able to actually grow industrial hemp in the valley, be able to provide a Living Harvest and other commercial interest in the Portland and other greater areas of the state, and be able to actually have that product be used in ways that our forefathers have seen and used. And to me, it's just one of these things that we need to take the next step. So what is the next step? The next step is working on Congress to make certain they do what they need to do, or the DEA, to redefine what marijuana is. And so what I'm going to ask you today is to actually get engaged. Go back to wherever your residence is. Make sure your U.S. congressperson, your senators know that you are interested in seeing the federal government address this. Ask the simple questions. Why can we import industrial hemp into this country with no limits, but our farmers cannot grow it here in the country? North Dakota is what I would consider the forefather of the movement in the recent years. And the way that we actually got the bill passed in Oregon, we had testimony that from one of the sponsors, who I believe was at the time the Speaker of North Carolina House of Representatives, who basically through his testimony was able to convince many of my colleagues that this was a step that we should have taken long time ago, and allowing for industrial hemp to be actually back at the table, to be a marketplace, and to allow for farmers as well as for industrial uses to give alternatives to other type of fiber. So with that, what I'd ask you again is to contact your congressperson as well as your senators, and have them know that you want them to move forward. I tried to see if there was actually any legislation pending in the federal system today. I did not see any. Todd may have some information, but the last one was in 2009, and it was Ron Paul. He has been an advocate, stellar advocate for reintroduction of industrial hemp into the country. And it may be worth you also making contact with Ron's office and asking them to reintroduce that legislation, because the way we found and what we did here in Oregon, it took 12 years to get it passed in this state. I first introduced the bill in 1997, and it was 2009 before we got it passed. So, President, we need to maintain a due diligence of not letting down, saying, well, we can't get it done because they won't listen to us. We got to keep on knocking on the door. We got to make certain that they hear us, and the best way to hear us is for voices such as yours and yours in your community to reach out to your elected officials at the federal level. Thanks.
Next, we'll look at the benefit and the necessary need to grow hemp to improve our soils as a rotational crop, and the invaluable source of nutritious source that comes from hemp oil and hemp seed.
All right, well, I'll indulge you with a little bit of plant geekness first. Cannabis is in the family Cannabaceae, which is taken from the word cannabis, which is the genus. The genus Cannabis includes 3 different species, and as you can see, they have all 3 different morphologies. The sativa is, I'm going to start with indica first. Indica is probably the first plant that enticed humans with its euphoric properties. And then soon after, we discovered its medicinal properties and its edible seed, and eventually its fiber. The plant then evolved another strain called sativa, and that indica started in East Asia, is arguably its center of origin. Sativa started to be developed more in Africa, also for its euphoric and medicinal properties, but also for its fiber, its seed, and its biomass. Sativa is primarily the species that industrial hemp for fiber as well as seed is derived from. Indica is, these days, it's primarily for euphoric and medicinal properties. And the medicinal properties are in both indica and sativa, and those hybridize very easily. Ruderalis is a Russian species, which is very short in stature. It auto-flowers, so it doesn't flower by photoperiod. Its main uses are as a breeding parent in back-cross breeding, so that you can get a plant that doesn't flower relative to the photoperiod, and also an early crop that you can grow very low, so it works really good for direct combine for harvesting seed. This is in Canada, in Delta, British Columbia, in 1998. I visited this farm for their first year of growing hemp. I look forward to this in Oregon. The farmer swathed off the edge of this field so we could kind of see the inside, and as you can see, the birds quickly went there. The birds love hemp seed. It's really important as a migratory bird feeding. And actually, the migratory bird population suffered considerably when Prohibition went into effect after World War II. Plant spacing is very, very tight. This is probably a little bit tighter than usual. This crop is actually grown for both fiber and seed. You can see the seed heads are concentrated up here, so the idea is to get an overhead thresher to just mow off the top seeds, collecting the seed and chaff, and then a swather or some other harvester would come back for the fibrous down below. Ideally, hemp seed would be cultivated a lot lower so you could direct combine it, and you're not wasting all of this plant nutrients and energy growing fiber if you only want the seed. But this one was grown for both fiber and seed. There's the copious seed heads that you see. We had a little fun and did some primitive seed cleaning. Usually you do this after it's been dried out, but we had a group there that couldn't wait until it was dried out. So we hand-beated it, we sieved it, and then we winnowed it as seed cleaning, and then came out with this beautiful seed that's fresh. Well, that was way back in the 20th century. Now they've got some modern equipment these days. This is both a seed cleaner and a seed dehuller. Why do we want to dehull cannabis seeds? Well, as you can see, the cannabis seeds are about 2 millimeters in diameter. They've got this hard hull full of insoluble fiber, which I love roasted and toasted, and it's nice and crunchy for the granola crunching palate. But for the mainstream palate, they're more interested in the chewy, crunchy germ. So that's why we dehull it. But by dehulling it, you're also removing some of the good dietary fiber that cleans our colons. We also have the hemp seed oil. Unless it's refined, it's got this nice green tint to it. And hemp seed butter, you grind that down. I came out with the first hemp seed butter product about 15 years ago. And why do we... So then we take those basic products, then we can make all kinds of things out of it. There's some hemp ice cream there. There's some smoothies and chai and dip. You got these manufactured products. That was my CD Sweeties. I started America's first hemp food company. So now it's a multi-million-dollar industry, the hemp food industry. And you know, why are we interested in hemp seed besides it being very delicious? Well, it's a fatty food, the good kind of fat, actually, which is full of 80% essential fatty acids, which you've probably heard of. The omega-3s and the omega-6s are the two essential fatty acids. They're in ideal proportions for our diet in hemp seed. Omega-3s aren't found in very many foods in this kind of quantity. It also has gamma-linoleic acid. These fats are essential to every cell in our bodies. They make up the cellular membrane. They're important to our immune system, to our brain function, to our immune response. Just tremendously important nutrients. The protein in hemp seed, it's high in protein. It's not quite as high as soybeans, but soybeans are probably the most common food allergens, one of the most common food allergens, and their soybean protein isn't very digestible. Hemp seed is full of globular intestines, some of the most edible and assimilable proteins. And it's got all 8 essential amino acids, just a fantastic protein source. And it's low in carbohydrates and high in dietary fiber, unless, of course, you use hulled seed, then there's a considerable less amount of dietary fiber. It's also amazingly good for the skin. So it's made in lotions, salves, balms, and medicinal products. And as you can see, this is Merry Hempsters. They're a local company. There are a lot of local companies in the Willamette Valley that thrive off of hemp foods and body care products and chocolate. And this is a thriving industry in the Willamette Valley. So if we're able to not only grow industrial hemp here, it would, having the growing region where you're producing it is a very huge benefit, both to economically and sustainably for transportation and fuel consumption and stuff. Industrial hemp products, biodiesel. Hemp would make great biodiesel. The only thing is it has to compete with canola oil. Canola can yield around 1,500 pounds per acre. Hemp, typically 900, 1,000 at the most. Maybe Dave's got some better figures too, but you don't really need a very complex oil you basically just need oil to make biodiesel. You don't need anything very specialized. When you get into lubricants and products like Dave's that he's going to talk about, then you really get into some serious chemistry. And Dave will talk about the industrial hemp oil products, I imagine, and the innovations with that kind of chemistry, which is quite amazing. So as for sustainability, I don't think hemp would be a great option for biodiesel while we have canola, and I do not support GMO canola in the valley, but that's another topic I could go off on for a long time. The Federal Controlled Substances Act, the feds don't really recognize any difference between hemp and marijuana, hemp. It just doesn't matter to them. It's illegal, it's a crime, and the only thing that we're allowed are the stalks, the fiber from the stalks, and the sterilized seed. This is a big issue because typically seed is steam sterilized under high temperatures. It denatures the protein, decreases the flavor, decreases the shelf life and nutrition, and it's just horrible. Treatment of a nutritious food. I used to be involved with some businesses where we shipped live hemp seed from China all the way down to Chile, had it pressed into hemp seed oil, and then we shipped both the oil and the seed cake up to Oregon so that we could have oil that was pressed from non-sterilized seed, and we were the first people in the country to do that. But that is clearly not sustainable. Lots of transportation involved in that. As much as I love Floyd's bill, the Industrial Hemp Act that he's talking about, it doesn't allow for hemp seeds unless it's for planting for the next year. So I suggest that for a future amendment to allow hemp seed in there. However, if you are an Oregon medical marijuana patient, you can possess unlimited quantities of non-sterilized cannabis seed because the law exempts you from the possession of unsterilized seed, but it doesn't place a limit on it. So as an OMA patient, you can have as much non-sterilized seed as you want. You could even grow 6 mature hemp plants and 18 hemp seedlings if you feel that the cannabis hemp seed is important part of your nutrition and your medicine. I would love to see some horticultural research with medicinal properties from the flowers that produce nutritious seed. So you could even seed part of your plant to grow copious amounts of seed while you're growing the rest of it for your flower medicine. Anyway, that's a little way that you can be a hemp farmer here in Oregon. So leaving it off with law, that's why we're here. Guess I'll answer questions later.
Great.
And I also have some hemp seed cookbooks if you want any afterwards. I'll be sticking around for a few minutes.
Is that sterilized hemp seed?
That's from Canada, from BC in 1998. We were there till sunset.
Okay, next, just to take a moment of looking forward into the future, if we can visualize hemp forests replacing our greatest carbon sink on Earth, our native forests. Our forests, which are truly forests, need to be allowed to be healed, allowed to mature. And if we can replace that realistically with this plant alone that has 25,000 plus uses, and it's the most incredible plant agriculturally. It's rotationally actually helps heal the soil. It's pest resistant, mildew resistant. It just has incredible properties. We could go on and on about that. The next view is taken from Tim, who has been passionately and deeply speaking out and documenting and educating people about our greatest resource on the planet. One of our greatest resources, our forests. So that is another key component of why industrial hemp is so critically important to bring to the surface today.
I'm born in Eugene, Oregon, 65 years ago. There was no logging in our national forests or BLM lands at that time. It was paradise, it was a cathedral, it was heaven. We have allowed the growth of an industry that is the most deadly, dishonest parasite on the face of the earth. It's a plague, it's a disease, it is greed, it is corrupt. It, in part, has added to the corporate cesspool of political corruption that now permeates all levels of government, which makes good people's jobs nigh impossible, especially when we are a pacified public. Ayn Rand talked in Brave New World about being pleasured to death. George Orwell talked when English was totally reversed. Life was death, death was life, evil was good, good was evil. Chris Hedges had a good piece on the coming dystopia where he was saying both of them are right and explaining how both of them are in play today. Madison Avenue's had 50 years to practice mind control and our behavior. Everything in my lifetime, every succeeding administration has gotten worse, more controlled by Wall Street. Floyd says we've got to change the way the federal government works. No, we have to get rid of it because it's not working for us. It is their football field. It is their rules, their game, Wall Street's game. Money controls who gets elected at the federal level in particular. Everything is wrong. Every law passed that is for the benefit of the public, by the time it's passed, is for the benefit of Wall Street and to this pain and suffering of the public. And there is no better example than the logging of our national forests. Teddy Roosevelt 100 years ago said we had logged too much and that the industry was made up of liars, cheats, and thieves, and even worse, and would take the very last tree telling whatever lie of the day worked to get you to let them do it. hemp is kind of an example of that. Instead of cutting our trees, whereas 100 years ago all of our ropes, our sails, and our paper was made from hemp, the most profitable, beneficial plant in the world, hemp, we outlawed it. They lied about why they outlawed it, but they lied about it and got it passed with bribery and extortion, which in this country, unlike most, is legal as long as it's called campaign financing. I came up with a slogan 20-some years ago, just said, "Stumps don't lie." Today we need another slogan. Facts don't lie. But in most discussions I've had on almost any topic of dealing with the Commonwealth or the health and well-being of the people of the United States, facts aren't allowed on the table. Facts aren't allowed on the table. They're irrelevant. It's ideology, it's politics, it's emotional, dishonest stuff. And at this law school, I've been taught that I have to accept political reality. You can't expect to change political reality. My whole background was practical economics. Fundamental, simple, basic, making businesses work. I worked in the small business arena and the big one, from the Department of Defense to my father's little plastics manufacturing company here in Eugene. We do things bass-ackwards, as my grandfather used to say. We tax and punish good things. We subsidize and reward bad things. Logging our national forests is heavily subsidized. We give them the dirt, the soil, the air, the water, the trees for free. And we only charge them for the cost of preparing the sales. Sometimes we even build their logging roads. We have more logging roads on our national forests by a factor of 10 than we have interstate highways crisscrossing the United States. Industrial hemp, and frankly for me, marijuana hemp, I don't give a shit. They're all practical and make sense. Tobacco and alcohol are subsidized, taxed. We pay billions of dollars of subsidies to tobacco growers. The insanity of making something that isn't as addictive, it isn't physically harmful, illegal, while we make other things that are very deadly, alcohol and tobacco, legal. My whole thing is zero-based analysis. Never go into a meeting or a discussion or a debate or a collaboration, children and rapists finding common ground. Stick to your main points. What's right? How does it pencil out? Does it make sense? Why can I bring it in from China, but I can't grow it? I have stopped production of the newspaper because I couldn't find any tree-free paper to print it on. We're only printing it online now. I wrote 100 letters to environmental and socially responsible groups asking them to go collectively and make a big container load purchase of hemp paper from China. Not one organization agreed to participate. It cost more money. So, eating up my children, eating up my grandparents is okay because it's cheaper than not doing so? The fundamental practical aspects, and this is where I put it all on you, us, it's our responsibility. The teabaggers are changing political reality every day, and for the most part they're wrong. But they believe in something passionately, and they fight for it, and they're willing to be rude, even violent. We're defending our children. We're defending the ability of us humans to survive on this planet in the future. It is a matter of life or death. We have already denuded most of the planet of its trees. We pay 100 million acres of industrial farmlands to grow nothing. We are stupid, insane, self-destructive, genocidal, suicidal sheep, not to malign innocent sheep. That's right. We have the power in this country to radically change the way things work. If we have to destroy Rupert Murdoch's office buildings because he's a mouthpiece of corruption, ruining the way our kids think, then maybe we have to do that. We have to be willing to do more than just vote, and most of us don't even do that. In Finland, it's a law. You have to vote. It should be a law in this country. Even ignorant people, or people who are ill-informed of the issues, frequently will make the right choice if they have to vote. People say, my vote doesn't matter anyway, they're all going to do bad things. Well, let's change that. I have a cartoon for a billboard in mind. It's some notable Rupert Murdoch or crooked politician standing up there at a podium. There's a bunch of children, multiracial, multi-age, and they're all holding a tomato. And the headline would be, is it time for the tomatoes or something more permanent? Folks, it's time for something more permanent. We're destroying our country from within. Illegal wars over there, claiming that those people are a threat to us, total bull. We're the threat to us. We're consuming too much, destroying too much, wasting too much. Industrial hemp is part of the solution. Marijuana, all kinds. Portugal legalized all drugs. Didn't decriminalize them. Legalized all drugs. Had a 90% reduction in crime rate. Treated it all as a social system. Made it legal, and there were almost no more problems. We can do things like that. You have to dream big. You have to get beyond the way things are. Because if you're in the way things are, you can't get outside of it. We have to go to the way things should be. Our kids should be healthy, educated, and taken care of. They're not. Because the timber industry in our state raped the state and pays no taxes. 100 million acres, pay them to grow something healthy, hemp or trees, and not for harvest. You don't harvest something that takes longer than your lifetime to grow. Thank you very much.
From that note, it's also about the language. We get termed radical, and if they really understood what the word radical really means, it's a botanical term for root. We need to get back to our roots. I mean, it's time, and it's time to not be victimized or held hostage any longer. It's time for us to clarify our vision and to put it out there what our priorities are and to be heard. Next, Dave he's been on board with lots of exciting projects.
My name is Dave Sieber. Before I start this, I want to point out how incredibly dovetailed every panelist here is, and what they're saying, and what they're trying to say to you guys. I have two companies. One is called Fiber Alternatives. The other one is called Hemp Shield. I want to thank the University of Oregon and Loretta and Josh for letting me do this. I want to personally thank Floyd for all the work he's done so that we at least have a toehold going on industrial hemp. I believe that all cannabis uses are valid, but anybody who knows me knows that I've spent the past 20 years advocating industrial hemp as an environmental remediation, especially for the forests. The forests are the second biggest carbon sink on our planet, next to the oceans. Where are we going to put the carbon if we keep taking the trees out of the forests? With that, first introduce Chancey Harrar over here, who is my assistant. Mention two of my mentors, Jack Harrar, who wrote The Emperor Wears No Clothes, and Tom Maloney, who worked at Washington State University Wood Materials and Engineering Lab, who both inspired me to take up as a life's work the use of industrial hemp for building materials. The title?
Would this help?
Sure.
No, that's just for the camera.
Yeah.
Just pick the whole thing up.
How about this one?
No, that,
I thought there was a mic. Oh, this here.
Can everybody hear me?
It'll sound big enough. We'll touch.
So the title of my speech today is The Reason Why Industrial Hemp is both the environmental and economic 800-pound gorilla in the back of the room. I'm going to ask for one of my panelists' help here. I made this poster, oops, upside down, a few years ago entitled 21st Century Industrial Hemp Energy and Composite Applications. Hemp is the highest yielding sustainable fiber and biomass source in a temperate climate. First, I want to talk about biofuels from biomass, which is different from what Todd was